Hey everyone, Reid Henrichs, and I'm here at Valley Forge, which is one of the most important moments of the American Revolution. It's for the United States Continental Army, where it actually became a professional fighting force. So I'm going to take you to a few different spots, let you see for yourself where history actually took place. Valley Forge is the place where George Washington took all of his troops and drilled them from the late part of 1777 to the early part of 1778. And I'm fortunate enough to be here at the encampment of General Nathaniel Greene, one of Washington's best generals. Alright, so the cool thing about this place is that it's an awesome day to do this. As you can see, it's raining / sleeting. We got snow on the ground. Just the kind of conditions that George Washington's troops would have faced when they are here at Valley Forge. So it's a perfect day, and I'm so glad that it's rainy and cloudy out. And I really want to talk about Valley Forge in general, so let's get to it. Alright everyone, I'm inside one of the lodgings that the Continental Army soldiers lived in, or at least a reproduction of it. As you can see, there's not a lot of space in here, and what we have here is we have literally 12 men in the same building. I mean, 12 men in a very, very small cabin-like structure. What you have is these hard plank beds, very common at the time. I mean, they would sleep right on top, 3 stacked right on top of one another. Alright, and you also see the fireplace is a main, form of heat for these guys. They were here for a while. I mean, they were here for at least a few months. Very primitive conditions that they lived in, and believe me, this beats the alternative, sleeping outside in your bedroll and a blanket and maybe huddled around a fire. So they were here, not much going on. Logs from the immediate area. It's just a simple encampment that people had. And when you think about this, these guys were training all day long. They'd go out, they'd drill, they'd march. They'd do rifle manual drills. They'd get, who knows, the discipline could have been harsh, especially under the Prussians, but which are here to help. But the point is, folks, is that they sacrificed quite a bit and endured conditions living in stuff like this, fighting against the British during the American Revolution. And every time I come to a national park like this, whether it's Gettysburg or whether it's here at Valley Forge, just this feeling of absolute service that they did, and absolute sacrifice, just so that we can be here and doing what we do. Alright folks, here we are at what is known as the Grand Parade, and this is where General Friedrich von Steuben came, and all the way over. He was an amazing officer, and he helped instill discipline in the Continental Army. Without him it would have been very difficult to win for a lot of reasons, and we're going to talk about that here. Alright everybody, as we talked about that Grand Parade, here it is right behind me. You can see that it's right here in the middle of the encampment of Valley Forge. This is right in the middle of where all the generals would have their divisions and their brigades. This wide open field here, this is where, it's pretty much the only place in the entire encampment where you could drill entire brigades. At brigades, there's a lot of troops. I mean, well over 1,000 troops at once. And if you can imagine what that would look like over here, guys spread out in wide columns and rows. It would take this big of a space to do that. This is where Count Baron von Steuben, he later became a general in the Continental Army. He was a Prussian officer. All right, he came all the way over here. He's a Prussian officer. Now, obviously, Prussia no longer exists, but what it is a Germanic people. All right, so he was a Prussian officer, came over, really instilled discipline in the Continental Army before then. And before he came over and started drilling the troops as far as marching, learn how to do the rifles, learn how to handle their rifles, things like that, their muskets. The Continental Army was very weak as terms of discipline goes, all right? They weren't a professional soldiery by any stretch of the imagination. These were farmers, for the most part, that volunteered to serve in the Continental Army, all right? So they didn't really have the discipline that the British did. The British were easily amongst the top disciplined troops in the world, okay? So that's what they were up against. So because the Continental Army didn't have that discipline, they needed a professional soldier. And as good of a person as George Washington was, he wasn't a professional soldier, okay? He just wasn't. That's not to diminish his skill or anything like that, but he was not a professional soldier. He's a good general. He instilled confidence in his men, but he was not a professional. That's not how he made his living, okay? That was the case with von Steuben. He was a professional military man. When he came over here, he taught the Continental Army how to march, how to get their muskets reloaded quickly, and the most important thing he did of all was he taught the Continental Army how to use the bayonet All right, and believe it or not, this is where most of the battles were decided in the 18th century. You know, the enemy would usually break and run, and the first people to break and run usually lost the battle. It was all about taking territory in the Revolutionary War, all right? If you could push the opposing army off the battlefield, your side won. Von Steuben helped the Continental Army start doing that, and this is one of those places that you kind of feel the energy on this encampment. How many important men were here? How many people drilled? All right, in weather just like this, in cold and rain and snow and everything else, from December 1777 until June 1778. Here it is in March. This would have been smack dab in the middle of it all, and you see the dreary weather that we're having. But here it is, folks, the Grand Parade where Count Baron von Steuben came over and helped discipline, drill, and make the Continental Army a formidable fighting force. All right, so here we are literally at George Washington's headquarters. All right, this building right here, it's the original structure. All right, a lot of the interior's the same as well, unchanged from back in the 1760s when it was built. But it was here that George Washington directed the goings-ons in this camp, and it's pretty amazing being in the same house that he was in and seeing the rooms that he sat in and wrote his orders out. He picked a good location with Valley Forge. Washington knew what he was doing when he was here. You know, he planned this being here for a reason. He knew his troops needed to get disciplined. He knew his troops needed to learn how to be professional soldiers. Valley Forge is a great location. They had everything they needed here. They had food, water, firewood. They were far enough away from the British that the British couldn't attack them, but they were also close enough that they could figure out what was going on. And if you come out to this area, it's a little bit foggy today, but you know, it's a very hilly, rolling hillscape, which means that it protected the Continental Army from view from the British, but they could see what the British were doing. It's a perfect location, just an example of Washington keeping things in context and understanding what was going on. But being inside that headquarters right there and being in the same rooms that he was in was something special for me anyway, and I just want to share that with you guys, and just that you can see where history took place right here at Valley Forge. Alright folks, so Valley Forge is important. It's important for a lot of reasons. I mean, first of all, the army that came here in December of 1777 was not the same army that left in June of 1778. You know, when they came here, they were undisciplined, they broke in the face of danger, didn't know how to march, didn't know how to use their bayonets, couldn't do close order drill that much. When they left here, they could do all that. They left here a formidable fighting force, as evidenced throughout the rest of the Revolution. You know, with the culmination in Yorktown, where we actually defeated Lord Cornwallis, and we're well on our way to earning independence. So, hope you enjoy the tour, and try to show you the most exciting places out here. Although just being here is simply exciting in itself, knowing, you know, the gravity and the magnitude of this place, and it's part of our American history, and I hope that, you know, you go research some of this stuff on your own. But the hardships that those men endured at Valley Forge is beyond most people's understanding today, especially under the circumstances where they weren't expected to win. They stayed, they fought, and they won anyway. And you know, the American Revolution, the soldiers faced a lot of hardships, and if they can do it, you know, we can too. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. And this is Reid Henrichs reminding you that the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others.